Right next to the news, we have our own stew. WIDR Kalamazoo. Right next to the news, we have our own stew. WIDR Kalamazoo. Right next to the news, we have our own stew. WIDR Kalamazoo.
Hello there, folks. Thanks once again for joining us on the Western News Review. It's always great to come your way with the trending stories that have been covered by the Western Herald. And as usual, today I have with me Cori Osterman, the news editor of the Western Herald, as well as Nicole Morehouse, who is the lead news reporter. And Cori didn't join us last week.
That's correct.
We missed you on the show. How was it? Where were you?
I was tabling for the Herald. We have a couple admitted student events going on at the university, so I was just sitting at a table.
Busy woman.
Getting students to try to, hey, this is what we are. Please join.
That's good.
We sat next to the WIDR table.
Oh, interesting.
It was a good time.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the work you do there later today. Nicole, how are you? How's your week?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, I have some tests, but
yeah, finals week approaching, and then
we've only got a couple weeks left.
Yeah, like
Everyone
2-3 weeks, I guess.
Hang in there.
Yeah, we're almost at the end of the line. Let's see how it goes from here on. So today we are discussing 3 major topics, and the first one is going to border on a student's documentary that basically aims to correct stereotypes about international students. I am particularly interested in this story because I am an international student. So once we get into that, I'll probably share my, experiences as well. And we also look at a lawsuit that's been filed against WMU by a professor. We'll tell you the basics of that lawsuit. And finally, I'm going to put my friend here on the spot, or rather under the spotlight, to tell me what they do there. And I guess it's my little way of celebrating what they do there, I guess. So I will do that as well and end the show this day. So let's start off with the stereotypes and correcting them. And Nicole is going to give us the story. Nicole, just take us away when you're ready.
Yeah, so this is a story that I wrote about a junior, Tesha Nowak, who made a documentary about 3 international students and just their experiences coming and going to school in Michigan and how it's different from their experiences in their home country.
Interesting. So first of all, let's start from what she uncovered from that documentary. What are some of the challenges that she highlighted that she thinks relates to international students here? Before I come in and share the ones that I personally see happening, what are some of the ones she identified in that documentary?
Yeah, some things that she learned from the international students she worked with was that they come and they're met with a lot of stereotypes from Americans, or they have to do what's called code switching. So they have to, they act differently in their home country than they do here. And, they just feel like they're living kind of 2 lives in 2 different countries at the same time. And that just adds kind of an extra burden to them.
I mean, that's pretty relatable, I guess. And for me as an international student, it's always been like that, where you try to want to fit in within your environment. And I've been an international student in 2 different countries. And in all those instances, it's been the same, right? So when I was in Russia, they're not really the world's favorite now. But when I was there, for instance, you want to fit in, you want to act like the people there do, you want to speak like them even. And then when I came here as well, you want to do the same, right? You want to fit in with the American society, do some of the things that they do, some of the social, the things they do for fun. You want to do the same, even though it's not something you're used to, and all of that. So I can understand all of that. And also the stereotypes that she mentioned is what I'm trying to get. But I want to believe that for that would be, I don't know, what stereotypes can you think about when it comes to I mean, you are. I can definitely speak about stereotypes. I guess it has to come from an outside perspective. What do you think about when you think about international students, for instance? Any of you? Do you
Like our personal views of international students?
I guess.
I think
confuse people? People will seem confused, when you see them.
Maybe.
Initially, I guess.
Maybe. I don't know very many personally, but I think we have a decently diverse campus, but we could definitely be doing more to be a little inclusive. But I've been to like a couple of the international festivals we've had on campus. We actually have one coming up that I think more non-international students should be going to kind of understand better those different cultures.
That's very important, and we'll come to how we can better make the experiences of international students. But Cori has touched on one of them, for instance, with the non-international students, basically the American students, right, trying to mingle with the international students, if you want. But let's look at the experience or the background of the lady who put together the documentary. What inspired her to do that? Is it something that she could resonate with in her own life?
Yeah, so she first decided to do a documentary when she volunteered at an event with a lot of international students, and she met some students, and she thought it was really interesting getting to hear about like their culture and the differences. So she decided to make the documentary for her, I believe it was for her thesis for the Honors College. And she talked about how she's from California, and after she came to Western, her family moved to Kentucky. And so she sees herself code switching from California to Michigan. And then even when she goes home to Kentucky now, she sees her family acting much differently than they did in California. And she talked about her brother. He talks to his Kentucky friends much differently than he talks to his family. So she sees that code switching in her personal life as well.
And you guys are from here. From an outsider's perspective, they might think America is the same everywhere, right? But I don't know if you're all from Michigan. Are you all from Michigan, first of all?
Yes, we're both from Michigan.
Okay.
We're very Midwestern.
Okay. Now, do you see yourself code switching when you go to places outside of Michigan or from the Midwest, for instance? Do you see yourself code switching, as she mentioned?
I think everybody code switches, even like when they are home. Like it's something that everybody does. It's just to different degrees. I mean, you talk differently to your friends than you do your parents or your teachers. But I think like this, it's kind of like an added element of going to a completely different region of the state or a different country, that it's not just different people, but also different culture.
Sorry to cut you. Let's put this into perspective and practicalize it. How does that code switching look like? Is it how you pronounce words? Is it how does it look like in real life?
I would say if we're using the example of like talking to your friends versus your parents, the slang terms that you use are probably going to be very different. Just the like cadence in which you talk to your friends is going to be different than the way you talk to your parents. But just like little things like that.
Do you guys have different accents? Does that also count as code switching when because I know there are parts of the US that, speak in a certain way, or they even pronounce certain words in a certain way. Do you find yourself doing that when you find yourself in such, community where they speak in a certain way and so you want to do the same?
I'm not sure. I've never lived in another state for like a longer period of time. Okay. Usually when I'm somewhere else, it's just like visiting. Just for a short amount of time. So I don't really see myself changing accents per se, but I will pick up like the different slang terms of the people in that area.
Oh, interesting.
But I believe accents are part of code switching for sure.
Oh, right.
Do you experience that?
I guess I do because funny thing. So I haven't changed it's not like I changed how my name is pronounced, but for instance, how Americans pronounce my name, it came to be so stuck with me that myself, I pronounce it wrongly, right? So my surname, for instance, in Ghana, I would say Ebo, but over here, I say Ebo to people and they still pronounce it Ebo, right? With the E sounding like an E, even though that's supposed to sound like an A, right? So I guess I decided to give up and also pronounce it Ebo sometimes. Sometimes I forget myself, I pronounce it Ebo. And then when I'm myself, I say the right thing. So I guess that's one of the influences that you get in a new environment, I guess.
I remember when we met and we recorded the first podcast, I asked how to pronounce your last name, and you said, well, Americans pronounce it this way. And I said, well, how would you like me to pronounce it?
Yeah, so that's one of those influences that sometimes you're not really aware of yourself. You're not even aware of changing or switching that code. For instance, sometimes I'm not aware of changing my pronunciation of even certain words because of how I was brought up. But you find yourself doing it when you're among a certain group of people, and I switch back when I'm among Ghanaians, even here in the US, right? So that does happen, I guess. And let's get to changing improving the experiences of international students, as is the focus of this documentary that the student put together in terms of stereotypes. How do we make the experiences of these international students better? Cori started off with mingling with them, but what are some of the other things that we can do? All right, so back to topic, right? How do we experience these? How do we, improve upon the experiences of these international students? Nicole, any suggestions?
Yeah, so Tesha talked about treating international students like you would domestic students, because they're not different. So, and I think, like Cori was saying with the meeting international students, I think curiosity is really appreciated sometimes. You can speak on that in your opinion, but I feel like when you show an interest in somebody's culture, then they really appreciate it and goes a long way.
That's good. Rather than making assumptions, it's usually best to want to go out with an open mind, to want to learn about someone else's culture. And I feel like it helps also improve your own experience in dealing with such international students when you meet them. Because, for instance, if you find out a lot about Ghana from me, or you meet other Ghanaians, sometime later in life, you're able to relate to some extent, right? You're able to talk about certain things about Ghana they might feel like, where did you learn that from? I had a Ghanaian friend, So that's certainly one of the things, treating them also as you wouldn't, domestic students. Sometimes we try to not want to offend people, and so we walk on eggshells when we're interacting with them. But I think we should, open up more, and that's going to help, them feel welcome. So that it's not like they are them and then we are us, and that's kind of gap. Does not really foster a good community, I guess. But thankfully for Western, I guess in my own experience, and I put this on the international students' social media, I think they made me share my experience, where I said that in my experience, the domestic students have been really nice to me, and even meeting other international students who are from different cultures, I feel like there's that bond. Just to that extent, everybody is nice to everybody here. So
that's good to hear.
Yeah, it is so far, I guess. All right, so that's it for international students. Let's talk about other stuff, and Cori will take us with this one. This is an issue that's got to do with, a legal, tussle, if you want, between a professor and the university. Cori, what's that all about?
Yeah, so WMU is undergoing a lawsuit following the decision to stop the renewal of former professor Daniel Matson's contract.
Why?
The reason, I'm going to read from the article mostly just so I know that I have everything correct here. Yeah. It's a little bit of a tricky story. It's a legal issue,
so you don't want to,
yes. Yeah. And I spent a lot of time writing this, so hopefully everything here is correct. But the reason the university did not renew the professor's contract was related to his statements regarding the LGBTQ plus community. Multiple complaints were made both by students and faculty at the time, and they decided that he should no longer be playing in a couple of the showcases they had. He played with the School of Music and Western Winds and the Western Brass Quintet.
Oh, okay.
And back in October of 2021, they decided to remove him from that program.
Okay, so here's with the music school.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this year they decided not to renew his teaching contract as a professor.
And now he's suing them. What reliefs is he seeking? What does he want at the end of this trial? Is it to be compensated or get his job back?
He claims that his rights under the First and 14th Amendments were violated by WMU employees, as stated in the lawsuit. Basically, he describes that his beliefs were not discussed with students during his time at WMU or advertised through the university. Those were his personal beliefs, and he was an advocate about those things elsewhere. Okay. And while other employees did know about them, they respected his wishes and understood that he did not view Western as a place that he considered it appropriate to talk about those things. So that's his side of the argument, and Western is saying that it's okay that they terminated his contract, and that's where we lie with the lawsuit currently.
Yeah. We'll keep our eye on that and see how that one goes. If there are any updates, certainly we will update our listeners on that. But let's move away from that and discuss you guys. Yeah. So, I mean, it's been amazing couple of weeks having you around and talking about news that you put together on your website, discussing them. And that's really what gets this show going, right? Because mainly it's about the discussions based on stories that you bring, and we try to share them with our listeners in case they miss them on your website. So I want to take this next couple of minutes to look at what it is that you guys do. You know, first of all, as student journalists, you are students, right? You have a lot of responsibilities as students. So first of all, what inspired you to want to dedicate part of that time that you have, those responsibilities that you have, set some aside? Not really set them aside, but make time to be student journalists. What inspired you? Who wants to go first? Let's start from Nicole, because Cori just finished talking. What inspired you to take this journey, with student journalism?
Well, I discovered journalism in high school with my school news magazine. A teacher reached out to me and told me I should join, and I really enjoyed it, and it made me want to become a journalist in the future. Wow. And so when I came to Western, I actually met Cori through a class, and she invited me to the Herald, and
that's nice.
Yeah, I just really liked it, liked the reporting, being part of the community that's there, met some fun people. So Cori invited Nicole to join. I mean, she had her own motivations to want to join journalism. Now, but what inspired Cori to want to do this?
Also started journalism in high school. I was on my school newspaper as a junior in high school. And then I came to Western as an undecided major. I took a journalism class because I liked it in high school, and I was like, this is an easy English credit check. And that professor told me to try out the Herald. So my very first week at Western, I actually joined a virtual Western Herald meeting because it was 2020.
The pandemic. Yeah.
And I fell in love with it pretty instantly. And a year later, I was still working here, and I declared journalism as my major as well. Wow. And now it is one of the biggest parts of my life. I love being an editor on the board. That's basically it.
Interesting. Would you say taking that bold step to decide to major in journalism at that point in your life was, Western Herald had any role in that you decided that because you came in as an undecided major, for instance? So do you think
absolutely.
It had an influence?
I think this is one of those fields where you learn while you're in the thick of it. Mm-hmm. It's very different to be in a classroom and have someone tell you how to write an article than it is to actually go out, write one, be talking to people, be interviewing, sending those emails. That is how you decide that you want to do this. And I just feel like it's my niche. I love it when people find that thing that they're really passionate about. And for me, it's reporting.
Oh, That sounds inspiring. But it's not all rosy, is it? Working as a journalist. I mean, you paint the picture of talking to people, going out to find stories. And Nicole, I'm sure, can relate to, chasing stories as a lead news reporter, for instance. It's not all that rosy. What challenges do you often encounter?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think one thing I kind of one challenge I personally have with the job is I'm a very introverted, reserved person. So sometimes going out and finding those people is not always the first thing I want to do.
Yeah, approaching them and all.
Yeah, that can be hard sometimes.
I can understand that.
I enjoy it though. Once I get talking to them, I love having that interaction, yeah.
Yeah, I was smiling because I've been at that point in my life, back in Ghana during my undergraduate when I was a student journalist myself. I was initially a reserved person, and going to this person, reaching out to this person, and booking them for interviews and stuff like that. It was usually one of the things I dreaded. When you're assigned, production manager assigns you to talk to this person, and those days we used to speak to people members of parliament. So you're already shaking on the phone, trying to find the right words to tell them that we want to speak to you. So I understand you're going out of your way to do that. But Cori, you've been on both sides, chasing stories as well, not just Nicole. And then as an editor, what are some of the challenges too?
I totally agree with Nicole. It can be a stressful job sometimes. We're putting ourselves out there. Our name is attached to those stories that are online. Once in a while, we make a mistake and we get a call from the university. Oh. That is extremely nerve-wracking.
The heat.
But, we fix our mistakes. We own up to them. We try to have that social media presence. And it's interviews are stressful sometimes. Reaching out to people is hard, but it's worth it when you get that really good interview and you really care. You feel like the person you're talking to really cares about what they do, and then you put that into the story and it falls together.
It's always good when you have someone that is passionate and someone that can give you content or something for news.
Absolutely.
It's really nice. That's one of the nicest. But you made mention of one of the things like putting yourself, your names are tagged to the stories. People tend to hold journalists, whether or not you're a student journalist or, you are mainstream, for instance, they tend to hold you to certain standards, right? Mm-hmm. Do you encounter, situations where people expect, where you're trying to have a personal life away from what standards that your audiences, expect of you, and you can't really balance the two?
I think we do a decent job of balancing it. Both of our Twitters are strictly professional. That's where we put all of our stories. And then other social medias are where our personal lives are. We are held to a certain standard as student journalists. And sometimes we are held to a higher standard than just being student journalists. And we do have to remind people, hey, we're also learning on this job. Yeah. We're still students. We don't have it down. We're not professionals yet. But that's kind of the thing to keep in mind. We're students.
Yeah. On that note, Nicole, talk to me about how you're able to juggle academics with work here, because this is extracurricular activity, right? Something you are doing on the job. You might be passionate about it, but you also have responsibilities as a student. And when you have your colleagues or your classmates, for instance, not having that extra burden. Well, burden in quotes, because if you enjoy it, then it's not really a burden. But they're not having to do that. Yeah, it is. It is both, right? How do you juggle the two? How do you maintain a balance?
Yeah, I honestly think I kind of view the Western Herald as kind of just like a sixth class. So it's I have a couple meetings a week. So and then I have, my stories I'm writing on that, it's definitely different. And yeah, I enjoy the Herald a little bit more than I do my classes. So they're different. They're definitely different environments, but I just kind of work into my schedule just like I would any other class.
No. Interesting. So she adds that to it. So it's basically a sixth class too. That's an interesting way of putting that.
It is.
Cori.
I never thought about it that way. I have had a ridiculous year. This is the most jam-packed my schedule has been in a long time, and my time management skills have increased tenfold. Wow. I'm a full-time student. I'm an editor at the Herald, and I'm also an intern at WMUK.
Damn.
So
You're so busy.
I am very busy, but I make enough time for all of it and to have some relaxing personal time on top of that. I've been able to figure it out. I don't know the secret to it. I don't think I could explain it to somebody else, but it is possible.
I was going to ask, and that will be the last question that I'm going to ask. Your advice to someone who is going to who intends to do something similar. But I'll get there. But before that, who are some of the people you look up to in the industry? You know, you're a journalist and someone who's aspiring to be even bigger. Who are some of your icons in the media space?
Yeah, so someone that I've paid a little bit more attention to lately is Jamel Hill. She, a great journalist, works for The Atlantic, and Cori and I actually recently got to go see her talk at beginning of the semester over at Miller. So
how did it feel like, had you seen her before that presentation?
I had not. So yeah, that was just a cool experience to see her come in and talk to us. She went to school in Michigan, I believe. Michigan State, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that's your icon. Nice. I haven't looked her up. I don't know what she looks like, but I remember we discussed her story and some of her views she shared on journalism, and I really liked them. So I'll definitely look her up after here.
Yeah.
But how about you, Cori? Is it the same person for you?
I also am a huge fan of Jamel Hill. We love a woman in the field.
That's good.
As women ourselves, it's
more inspiring
important
that
to
way.
look up to them and see that they have been there, done that. It's super inspiring. I also look up to Juana Summers. She's the co-host of NPR's All Things Considered. Because I work at WMUK, I listen to a lot of NPR.
Yeah, I do too.
She's one of my favorites. And then a new one pretty recently, my dad put me on a podcast, and I just think it's called Reply All. But PJ Vogt is one of my favorite journalists and podcasters. I think he's just a great storyteller. There's something inspiring about the way he takes a pretty mundane story of somebody's life and turns it into something that you genuinely want to listen to. And those are my goals in life. So I look up to him a lot.
Wow. Interesting figures that you mentioned, and I'm glad that these are people that you look up to. Hopefully you get to be like them or better than them, as usually mentors want you to be better than them, or even your icons want you to be better than them. Thank you guys for sharing that. Before we go, let's look at, there may be someone out there, right, who is thinking about, should I just focus on my studies or should I add something extra to it? Like people like you are doing. What would be your advice to them? For some of these people, they are afraid of whether or not they're able to combine these two things, for instance. What would be your advice? Nicole, you want to go first, or Cori, you want to go first?
I'll go.
Okay.
Do it now. If you're thinking about it, just go for it. Like, I cannot recommend enough joining a campus organization. You find your people there. You might find your major there. I promise you have time. I know we're all super busy people, but it doesn't feel like that much more work when you find something that you enjoy. And personal plug, go join the Western Herald. If you like writing, do it. Join the Western Herald. Also,
you just have to, man.
all you have to do is walk in the door and we're like, you're in. This is
good.
You found us. Congratulations.
The hardest part is getting to the office.
That will be different once we're in the new student center.
Yes.
Yeah, locating this place. I remember my first time coming down here, I went up to the international student office. They directed me. I still couldn't find it. So I circled around the building. I don't even know how I got here, but I ended up here.
And then student services is insanely confusing.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm sorry to anyone who's looking for us, but that's where we are. We're in the basement.
Yeah. Right. So before we go, Nicole, your advice, if any, to someone like that who is looking to add something extra to their academics.
Yeah, I'd say the most important thing is just finding something you enjoy. I hope that's the Herald. You know, if you like writing, if photography, just talking to people.
And
WIDR
as well, you know, you can join us too.
Yes.
If you like to
Do
talk.
both. They go well together.
Resource for radio evolution, people.
Yeah.
Listen, at least.
Yeah, but when you're doing something you like Cori said, it doesn't feel like that much work, and it can even be a place to kind of just like de-stress and decompress and like take time away. And even though it is an added thing to your schedule, it's not taxing if you really like it.
And like Cori said, you meet your people in such environments, right? I have had most of my best connections in students' activities that I joined. And these had led me to landing jobs, for instance, after school. So you want to make sure you put yourself out there, you try some of these things. It's going to help. And Western Herald, their doors are always open for you.
So are all of the other RSOs on campus. I'm sure all you have to do is shoot an email or just go to something.
Really, that's what I had to do to join WIDR, for instance. I was in Ghana. I knew I was coming to Western. And so I was just going through the student organizations. I saw the Herald. I saw WIDR as well. And I shot an email to WIDR because I was already into radio. So I said, well, why not try it? And then Curly got back to me and said, you know what? Yes, we'd like to have you. So they're super nice people. That's basically what I'm trying to say. The RSOs definitely welcoming to you. Thank you guys so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And even though I am already in this space, I am still inspired by the stories you tell and your motivations for wanting to do student journalism. And I hope that it takes you to greater heights from here. This has been another edition of the Western News Review. Today we brought you stories from a documentary put together by a WMU student aiming to correct stereotypes about international students. And we've also looked at a lawsuit that's been filed against WMU by a professor. I will be watching out to get more from that in the coming weeks. And then the last conversation we just had was about my amazing co-hosts here, Cori and then Nicole, who shared their inspirations for pursuing this part of student journalism and what challenges they encounter and how they're able to maintain a balance or walk a fine balance between academics and extracurricular activities, or RSOs if you would want. Until we meet same time next week, take care of yourself, be safe. Bye-bye. My name is Daniel